there is this silly idea going out there in the free software world and around the discussions on the gnu+linux operating system that fragmentation is somehow a bad thing. Well, I'm here to tell you that it's not a bad thing. In fact, quite the opposite. In fact, fragmentation itself is the very driving feature of advancement when it comes to the technology of the operating systems. You see, the argument that is made against fragmentation, saying that it's a bad thing, is that, but it's difficult and somehow, confusing or whatever. Those are all nonsense, of course. Because, this is nonsense. But any other kind of argument against fragmentation, because, somehow it makes it, actually, I don't really think that there is really, a good argument against fragmentation. Really, it's more so just the argument for centralization. But, see, here's the thing. Let me tell you a scenario where fragmentation is bad, where it used to be, when fragmentation was a bad thing in the operating system scene. You see, with permissive licenses and software that is not copylefted, then fragmentation is bad. If you have software under, let's say, one of those BSD licenses, if your software is licensed in such a way, then fragmentation does become a big problem, because now you have a bunch of these different, let's call them vendors, the vendors of their proprietary, they have their own proprietary operating system that are based on, let's say, some BSD operating system. So you take the BSD operating system, and then a bunch of vendors, they take that BSD software and then they make their proprietary operating system out of it. Now, in this scenario, what happens when they make these proprietary operating systems based on the permissive license of BSD? What happens is that if any of these proprietors decide to add improvements to their operating system, well, you know what happens? It becomes a dead end, because those improvements are only exclusive to that operating system, that specific distribution, that specific proprietary vendor's distribution. So then this creates this scenario where there are a bunch of these competing distributions of the BSD operating system. Each of them has different features and improvements, and they are all dead ends, because, you can't take the features out of them and improve the collective. You can't add the features to every other distribution of the BSD operating system, because it's proprietary. It's made proprietary because the permissive license allows that. So in this scenario, fragmentation is really bad, because if some vendor makes a proprietary version of BSD with all kinds of improvements, not only is that proprietary software, and that's bad, of course, but if we're not talking about ethics, if we are just talking about the practical technology this time in this speech, the technology it gets stuck in that one distribution, so it can't leave. No one else can benefit out of it. So the scene, they can't compete fairly, because one of those distributions has an unfair advantage, because they have the copyrights and all that, which keeps those proprietary improvements. It keeps them to that one distribution. So it has an unfair advantage. So the system, the collective, all of the operating system in general, they cannot improve, they cannot move forward, they cannot progress, because those features are locked into that one specific operating system. So if one of those proprietary vendors makes a really good operating system distribution, then only that distribution is good and no one else can benefit out of it. So those benefits are stuck to that one distribution. So you either have to use that distribution or you don't get the benefit. So there, fragmentation is really bad. Fragmentation hurts the operating system entirely. It's bad. So then, what is the solution? Well, copyleft is the solution. You see, now with a copyleft license, no vendor can make a proprietary operating system out of the copylefted operating system. For example, in the GNU operating system and the Linux kernel, so the gnu+linux is basically copyleft, you can take the copylefted gnu+linux operating system and make your own proprietary version out of it. So therefore, everyone, because they are forced to share the source code, they cannot lock users in to that dead end. They cannot create this dead end where the users are either stuck with them or without them. They cannot create this scene where it's all like that. Instead, the software, it's made available to everyone, so everyone can benefit from the improvements. So if a vendor, this time it's not a proprietary software, if the vendor makes a distribution and adds improvements, then anyone can take those improvements and the overall, everyone can benefit from it. So the features that are good and others want to take, they can. So everyone benefits. So this drives the advancement. This creates the progress. When there's a single person doing some work, everyone benefits. Then when someone somewhere else is doing some work, everyone benefits from that too. And then if someone does something bad that no one likes, well, no one just adopts that. So the bad things stay where they were made because no one wants to adopt those bad features. And then the good improvements everyone starts using because they are good improvements and everyone wants to use them. So you don't create these dead ends, these vendor lock-in type things. I don't know if that's the correct term, who cares? The copyleft creates this scenario where you can add all the improvements in the world to your distribution, but you can't keep the users if someone else does the improvements better. They can take the improvements you made and implement them better, and then the users will leave you and go somewhere else. So this creates an advantage. This improves the technology. Whereas if you had an operating system and it's proprietary and you implemented some really good advancements, so your operating system is comparatively way better than everyone else's, so your distribution is the best one. But what if you implemented those improvements haphazardly, or whatever, how that term goes, haphazardly, if you implemented those improvements really poorly, while your operating system might be the best distribution out there, it's not the best it could be. So if your operating system is proprietary, if it's based on some BSD operating system and you made it proprietary, you could have the best improvements, so your operating system is the best one, your distribution is the best one, but it's still not the best it could be. So therefore, the users are stuck using your software in its current state. They cannot improve it, no one else can take the features and advance them. Everyone is stuck with what they got. Whereas in the gnu+linux copyleft scene, if you implement a bunch of good additions, new features, and you make the best distribution with all the best features, but the implementation is poor, it could be done better. Well, in the copyleft gnu+linux scene, someone will do that. Someone will look at that and say, I like those features, I want to implement them better because I can see that you didn't do it properly. And now they will. And now there will be someone who has a distribution with all the improvements you made, but even better. So they take those improvements and improve even further. So everyone keeps on improving and improving and improving because they can take all the improvements someone else made and build on it. That's how the technological advancement is done. That's how fragmentation is actually a really good thing. It is a part of the drive of advance when it comes to the technology. That drives the development. When you make new features, someone else can take them and build on them. So you keep advancing and advancing. Whereas in the BSD world, if you add improvements and you make your software proprietary, no one can build on it. So it's waste. It's a dead end. You can't take it. It doesn't go anywhere. It's a waste. It's waste because it could be done better. Someone could take those features and do them better. Someone could build on it, but they can't because it's proprietary. So if they can't build on it, then it's useless. It's a dead end. It's waste. So that is why fragmentation is actually a good thing, as long as you have copyleft. But if you have a permissive license where people can make their software into proprietary software, then fragmentation becomes a problem. So only if you use copylefted licenses, only then is fragmentation a good thing. So as long as you are using copylefted licenses, then fragmentation is a good thing, and you shouldn't talk against it. You shouldn't say that it's a bad thing. It's not a bad thing, it's a really good thing. It's literally the difference which makes the development of gnu+linux, the technology, superior to the BSD operating systems in terms of technological progress. Because advancements that someone makes to the BSD operating system, if they make those into proprietary software, those advancements are stuck the way they were made by the proprietary vendor. They stay that way because only the vendor is allowed to improve upon it. So if the vendor doesn't improve them, then everyone is stuck with the subpar quality, and no one can take those and build on them. Basically, it's a dead end, like I've now described. So yeah, stop saying that fragmentation is a bad thing. A lot of these people on the internet, they go around saying that like, oh, fragmentation is a bad thing. No, it's not. No, it's not. Fragmentation is what makes the gnu+linux superior to the BSDs in terms of technology. The BSDs are far behind the gnu+linux, while there are some historical reasons for that also, because the development of the BSDs, it basically came to a halt for a while because of all the lawsuits in the 90s and whatever. But regardless of all of that, those lawsuits have ended a long time ago, but BSD hasn't picked up their pace. Because gnu+linux keeps on developing further and further. Plus, BSD also had a head start in that they already had a much more complete operating system back in the early days. They could have driven the development further and further, but it didn't happen. gnu+linux came out of nowhere and progressed way beyond anything that any BSD could achieve. Because the BSD's development, it creates these dead ends. You can't progress on the BSD platform like you can on the gnu+linux one. Because, well, I've just described it now. That's what this speech is about, and that's what I've said now. So, yeah, I'm not gonna repeat myself anymore. But yeah, stop saying fragmentation is a bad thing. It's only a bad thing as long as if you are using permissive licenses. So don't use permissive licenses. They are bad in every way. Permissive licenses are bad both in terms of technological advancement and also for ethical reasons too, because proprietary software is evil. So you shouldn't allow proprietary software to be made from your free software. If you make free software, well, you shouldn't allow others to take it and make it into proprietary software. So for ethical reasons, permissive licenses are bad, but it's also bad for technological reasons too. So it's inferior in every way. And of course, proprietary software itself is just the absolute worst. If you just make proprietary software, well, that's just bad. It's just bad it's bad in every way. It doesn't get worse than that. Proprietary software is just the worst. Yeah, permissive licenses are just bad. Proprietary is the worst, and copyleft software is the best. So, yeah, that's interesting. Use copyleft licenses and be grateful for fragmentation. Fragmentation drives progress because there are many people competing to make the best distribution, and any advancements that are made, everyone can benefit out of. So all the advancements, they help the collective. Whereas on the permissive licenses in the BSD world, all the advancements, they only benefit those who made the advancement. The platform as a whole doesn't benefit. In fact, it hurts the platform, because then it actually creates incompatibilities and all that stuff. because features that are in one operating system cannot be used in another one. I mean distribution. So features in one distribution cannot be used in another because they are proprietary features. So it actually hurts the platform. It doesn't drive progress. It is degeneration. Right, so fragmentation is good. All hail fragmentation.